All right, welcome. Ozheads episode 5. Once again, we got kicked out of the old place and now we're in a new place, but no, we didn't really get kicked out. we are changing the scenery to something a little bit more authentic, I guess you could say.
Yep. Where it all happens, the warehouse, where we can ship,
Yes.
get it out.
Yeah, so this is a little, typically we don't have a quasi-Persian rug, whatever you call this here, but
it's not a Turkish rug.
Or this, whatever this is, and then we have this from events and everything. But this is all legit, all these racks, and if you were able to turn this camera around, you would go that way, and there'd be racks floor to ceiling. So welcome to our world, as it were. Although we had to kick Thaddeus out for lunch, so there's no shipping going on right now.
And no heavy metal music playing.
Is it heavy metal? It's not even heavy metal.
He rotates.
It's like hate thrash metal or something.
Yeah, but I mean, yesterday he was listening to like the Four Tops.
Yeah, no, he was on the Motown vibe yesterday, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I like that one better than the.
He's diverse. I will say that. Yeah, he is. He's a good dude.
I don't mind the heavy, but when you get into like
the hate metal kind of thing is like
hate metal.
No.
Also, I'm impressed. I mentioned to John, he has like weights at the back over here. Actually, your weights are pretty. They're 55s and 60s. Do you have anything lower?
Goes up to 65. I think we start at 30. There's a set of 30, 40, 55, 65.
What do you do? What are your when do you use them?
I try to get back there during lunch hour at least hopefully 3 times a week, just to keep something going and just go back there and knock some stuff out or just do some pull-ups or whatever. Just, keep the body in motion.
You can do pull-ups back there?
It's a pull-up bar.
What? That I haven't seen.
Yeah, most people can't do a pull-up though, so it's...
Pull-ups are hard.
Yeah.
Do you have a band? No, you do it strict.
No, I do dead hang all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down.
So in the first episode, we knew that John was a trainer at one point in time, like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So do you still have a routine back from those days?
No, I just do whatever I feel like. Just hit some, get the body going. Because if you're just sitting at the desk all day, it's not good for you, man. And you gotta do something. I don't have time, when I'm not here, I don't have time. I'm busy being husband, dad, so there's no time to hit the gym or anything like that. So I'll just, in the middle of the day or the end of the day, I'll just go in there and knock out like 30, 40 minutes. That's all
so do you ever do something like while you have you done it while smoking a cigar?
No, I have not. that I would not. I like to compartmentalize. I'm either doing the workout or the smoke out. So now we're smoking.
With the 60s, then what are you doing? Are you doing like curls? Are you doing
bench, incline bench?
Oh, so there's a bench back there too.
Yeah, flat bench, incline bench, 265s.
Okay, I haven't explored it as much as I should.
Yeah, so
that's good.
I wish I was in the gym. I miss going to the gym. I really do, but got to make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
So we are back from the TAA, and for those that don't know, that stands for the Tobacconists Association of America.
Or the TAA, as one of our friends called it.
We used to have back in the day. And it's, about 70 retailers?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Give or take, 70.
80.
So you have to be invited to join as an associate member, which means like a manufacturer, or a retailer. And there's only like a certain number of retail accounts across the country. You can only be within a certain 100-mile radius of each other, this and that. Like there's no TAA account in Nashville, which is shocking.
Yeah.
We have so many retailers.
There used to be Uptowns.
Was Uptowns?
It was Uptowns back in the day.
That's wrong. Jeez.
Now it's Nashville Cigar, Franklin Cigar. But
they're not TAA.
Well, it's hard to believe there's nobody in Nashville.
I know.
That's in that organization.
The only TAA member is in Chattanooga from Tennessee. So it's interesting. But that was a fun show. It was my first one since 2019.
That was my first one in 13 years.
Shit. What'd you think? Has it changed or is it kind of the same?
No, it's good. I mean, look, I think it's kind of the same, but they've added some different wrinkles to it. I felt like it was well done. I remember back in the day, I used to go there, with my father and
I remember.
Mother and stuff like this. But I got into this habit of like doing all these impressions of some of the more like colorful retailers that were there. Mm-hmm. Like in Chicago, there was Diana Gitz, who owned Uptown.
They're still there.
And she had the big beehive.
I remember.
And the Carrera glasses, and she had the cigar in her mouth, and she'd be like, "What a load of crap!" Or like, "This cigar tastes like an armpit." She was a classic
Uptown
Chicago, the Bears kind of.
North Wells, I think.
Yeah, character.
Yeah.
So I used to dress like her and do that, and then they got me to do all this other stuff like One time I dressed like somebody. It surfaced on Instagram. I was like, I had a fruit basket on my head, and I was like dressed like
See,
Carmen,
that was
Carmen Miranda
back
or
in the day
something.
before there was social media, though. 13 years, you really didn't have
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Right now, everything you do is on the next day. It's on somebody's
That's right.
Instagram or whatever.
Somebody
It's
pulled it.
interesting.
Somebody pulled it out of the archive and kind of sent it to me. So it was funny.
What's interesting about that show is it seems like it's the same. I imagine the base set of retailers is the same, has gone unchanged for the most part since 13 years ago. It's the same crew year in and year out. They add one or two here and there, but for the most part, it's the same old set.
Well, there's a lot of the kind of like the core retailers that have been going for a while, but they've added some new people. Like when I was looking through the list of who was there, I mean, there were a lot that I asked. Remember, I asked you, I'm like,
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
this?
yeah.
Who's this? Who's this? And I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, they were nice. The camaraderie was great.
I love the venue. Casa de Campo. That's my
Casa de Campo was great.
beautiful place.
Yeah.
Where they used to do it back in like 13 years ago? I don't
Well,
even
I mean, that's the other thing that changed, right? Is that I said, why don't we do it in Arizona? Why can't we do it in? There was one that was in Hawaii,
oh, wow.
but it has to do with like they don't allow smoking anymore.
Yeah.
So
No,
you
Hawaii's
can't-
really
You
tough to
can't
smoke.
go and smoke.
Yeah.
So the last day they have this like mini trade show where like people have, we have tables. People come to our tables that are retailers, and then, they order for their store, and everybody's smoking, and it's inside. So you can't do that like inside anymore.
That's true. That's
And
a
some
good
of the
point.
venues, I guess, I mean, I would say do the whole damn thing outside. But they may, some
Pretty
of these
soon,
venues, they don't allow you to smoke outside.
These trade shows are going to end up being like Coachella. We're going to end up in the middle of the desert under a bunch of tents. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like there's going to be nowhere left. It's like,
Listen, I've told them over and over. I go to we went to Art Basel, and we converted our warehouse into an art center. There's a big art show in Miami called Art Basel. And these are, it started like in the convention center, the first one. And now they have these tents that they've set up like downtown Miami or in the beach that are freestanding. So, and they're huge. So why can't we do this for some of our trade shows? I mean, it adds cost, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's a big kind of obstacle to it.
Yeah.
But at least you can smoke in them unless
the
the tent
smoking
company
tub
doesn't let you
is-
smoke in tents.
that's getting to be a challenge. And everything's shifting going forward. Like we're talking, we're probably 80 days away from Vegas PCA in July.
Wow.
And then next year, the PCA moves to March, which everybody's like all simpatico with. But on this side of the fence, as a manufacturer, that means everything, your product development schedule moves up further, like 3 months, which is even more of a challenge because these things take, sometimes a full year to get something to market. But it's interesting. There's a lot of changes going on. But
I think most of the feedback for that was positive. And I mean, I guess, typically, if you look at like January, first quarter of the year, it's colder outside. People are not, hypothetically, there's less opportunity to smoke cigars, outdoors.
True.
So, therefore it makes sense to have these trade shows, in the first quarter.
And then
it gives at
TA
least-
moves to October next
Yeah.
year. So then we're flip-flopping a little bit, so I don't know. It'll be interesting, though.
But it gives some stimulus and activity around kind of, our industry so that we're not just sort of like
Yeah.
January, February, and they're not typically like
Jan and
slow,
Feb
slow,
are
and then all of a
pretty
sudden it kind of takes off.
Well, there's also the TPE. Is it still called the TPE, Tobacco Plus Expo?
Yeah.
Or they're calling it something else. I don't know.
It's yeah.
But it's that
I think
show.
it's called Total Products.
Maybe
Expo,
that's it.
right?
Yeah. Because I know
Instead
they
of
took the
Tobacco
plus
Products
out.
Expo.
So but that show typically isn't really that big for us as much as like TAA. Like TAA, we had our best TAA as Crown Eds for sure, by far. And RMS played a big part of that. That was, you talk a little bit about that launch. We had that launch at the TAA.
Right, yeah. So we wanted to launch it before then.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to rush it, and after we were in the business for such a long time, you learn that, if it's not ready, then don't release it. I mean, wait a little bit. I mean, hypothetically, it will never be 100% like the cliche goes. If you wait until something's like 100%, you'll be waiting forever.
Yep.
But, I mean, if you don't have, like, the materials like the bands and the vistas and all that stuff, I mean, then the cigars were ready and aged. So by the time we launched it, so this is an extension, what John is talking about, to Bosphorus. It's called Aramas because if you look at the vista of OFC or Ozgener family cigars in general. One side is of Turkey, where my father was born and raised. My mother is Turkish, but my dad's really Armenian background. So the other side window shows Mount Ararat in Armenia. So we wanted to use the name Ararat. We couldn't. It's trademarked by a cognac company. That's Armenian cognac.
Everybody's got a trademark on something. I swear.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's so litigious.
And then at the trade show, I was talking to our Armenian customer. He's like, well, you need to call it Masis. Everybody in Armenia calls it Masis. But I mean, it's actually the city.
And was that marked?
Masis.
Was that
That's marked too. A cigarette company in Armenia. So then we took the prefix of Ararat and Masis, and it's Aramas, which sounds like a cologne, but that's not a bad thing. So
there was a cologne, Aramis, I think it was.
That's right.
Aramis.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Armani?
I don't even know. I don't wear cologne.
I don't know.
I mean,
I was going to wear a cologne because my father would wear colognes. This guy.
I like them. My wife's a little bit sensitive to smell, so it's a trigger.
But sometimes I don't wear it because if you're smoking a cigar, does that get into the way of the aroma? So I didn't wear one. Normally I wear one. Force of habit, Armenian, Turkish. So anyway, called Aramas, and we wanted to make the blend also very rich and memorable and complex, since it kind of harkens to my late father, his side of the family. And so it has a Mexican San Andreas wrapper.
Love that.
The binder is Ecuador, Sumatra, and the fillers are a combination of like Nicaragua, some Piloto Cubano from Dominican, which I love. Gives it a lot of spice. And actually, it's got a little bit of USA Connecticut broadleaf.
I was going to say, doesn't it have some broadleaf in there? I thought that was really interesting.
It gives it a really kind of nice, almost like dark chocolate, cacao kind of notes. I also like that wrapper. That's changed too. See, remember, it used to be all about Connecticut broadleaf, and now people are more kind of in tune with Mexican San Andreas.
Yeah.
So why?
Well, there was a broadleaf shortage for a while too. There was a few years where we didn't even have Le Carême out or anything like that, and we didn't have Waltz or Rose from my father.
Le Carême is broadleaf, no?
Yeah, that's Connecticut broadleaf. So there was a drought of broadleaf for I don't know how many seasons it was, about 3 years. So that in lieu of that, people started using more San Andreas Mexican because it had the same kind of dark, rich characteristics. But now broadleaf is back. I mean, we're getting it from 3 different factories, and it's good. It's really freaking good. And I mean, people were using Pennsylvania broadleaf for a while, but people don't realize Pennsylvania broadleaf is actually a hybrid. It's like PS something that. It's a hybrid strain of Connecticut broadleaf. Now they're growing Connecticut broadleaf seed in Kentucky, and from what I've heard is the result is it's a very similar characteristic wise to Connecticut broadleaf. So
have you tried any of it yet?
I have not tried any of it yet, but I've heard good things. But I don't know. I would be a little bit apprehensive. I'm more of a traditionalist. I like Connecticut broadleaf. I mean, but
so is that what's on Pastelitos here?
Pastelitos is Connecticut broadleaf.
Yeah, Pastelitos is. I smoked this weekend. It was awesome.
It was a nice little banger. When we started talking about it was third quarter of last year. And we always do a little short format cigar for the winter months. We've done it with Jericho Hill. We've done it with La Imperiosa. We've done it with various brands. And so I thought about this little 4x54, a little pigtail, and Ernie liked the idea, so we started playing with it. Anyway, longer story short, it didn't get out in the cold winter months. We just got it out, I think, last month maybe, so March. Yeah. So it's kind of now we're getting into spring a little bit, but it's a great cigar for when you want you only have 45 minutes to smoke a cigar. You want something that's got flavor. It's very nice. I'm very happy with that.
So this is Connecticut broadleaf, yeah?
Correct.
So is it punchier, stronger than the normal Le Carême, in your opinion?
No. I mean, Le Carême is broadleaf across the board.
Yeah.
That's the same blend as the regular production. It's just in a shorter format. It's just in a vitola that doesn't exist outside of that.
Yeah, it had a really nice spice to it that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I like that cigar. I like that blend, actually. We also do a thing called Bellicosas Fino, which is a little Bellicosa Fino in that brand. Little It's kind of like modeled after the Bolivar Bellicoso Fino, and that's very popular as well. But that's also a round cigar, whereas the regular Le Carême line is trunk pressed. So it's just fun to play with different things.
So is Tennessee Waltz, is that also Connecticut
That's Connecticut
broadleaf?
broadleaf. But what's interesting is you could, same wrapper, but completely different flavor profiles, completely different flavor profiles. Waltz is punchier, definitely punchier.
What about Las Calaveras? What do you use? Does that change
Calaveras
completely?
changes year to year.
Like,
the last time,
100% everything about it.
everything. Well, the sizes vary. I think I've kept the Robusto in the brand since 2014, but the blend has changed every year since 2014. 2016 is the last time we used Connecticut broadleaf on the wrapper for that, and then the 2023 will be out. I'd probably say late May, sometime in June, maybe. It's just, right now we're all at the mercy of materials, bands, boxes, bands, boxes. How long is it taking? Sometimes it's taking 8 weeks, sometimes it's taking 12 weeks. So we're all kind of playing in the same game, trying to get materials,
One of the things that has been, to go back to the TAA, that was different than when I went to it, is that, obviously I've been gone for like 13 years, but there used to not be a TAA exclusive product item.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
They call it the ESP series.
ESP?
Yeah, exclusive series product,
Okay.
I think is what it stands for. Yeah.
So when did that start?
I don't know. I remember we got invited to be a part of TAA, Crown Heads did, in 2014.
Okay.
And as part of the invitation, they said, would you guys do an exclusive cigar for TAA? And that was the Angel's Anvil, which there's a whole story behind that. But I chose that name because it's an acronym for TAA, the Angel's Anvil, TAA.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how much further before that it really started, or, so I would say probably, I don't know. I think Pete's been doing a TA exclusive for a long time, so I would probably think that it
10 years?
At least. I would think at least 10 years.
Do they seem to support that pretty well?
They do.
Right?
They do. They do seem to support that really well. Our goal was to do like 1,000 boxes among the 70 stores or so, and we exceeded the 1,000. But I think Pete's goal was like 2,500 boxes for this year's TAA. I'm not sure, but they go deep on that. They go real deep. It's fun. They've got something that really is kind of exclusive, has exclusivity, because if you're only one store of 70 in the United States,
right.
You know what I mean? You got something.
So does that change every year also, the blend?
Yes.
100%.
The blend, the size.
So what is it this year then?
This year it's an interesting wrapper it's a 6x54. It's a wrapper that's a Sumatra hybrid, and I kept asking Ernie for months, what's it a hybrid of? It's a hybrid, bro. It's hybrid, Ernesto. But it's basically a hybrid of Sumatra, Ecuador, and grown in Ecuador, and Corojo C9. He calls it like a hybrid Sumatra C9. So it's a really tasty wrapper, very unique. When we did a 654, because that seems to be like today's new Toro. It used to be 650 was like the Toro, right? Now it's like 54, 56 practically. Everybody's getting bigger and bigger. So that's in production now. Again, boxes, bands. So we're trying to get it out in the next 8 weeks, probably more like 10 to 12, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, you brought up a good point, because I received an email from one of our sales guys. This was like last week. And he said, I visited a store. So with Aramas, the sizes are subtly different than Bosphorus.
Yes.
So in Aramas, we have a 5x52, which we have a 5. They're all round. So we have a 5x52 in Bosphorus. That's box pressed. In Aramas, we have a 5x52. And then we also have a 5.5x55. That's like my personal favorite size.
It is a good size.
Well, because I think that it like kind of engulfs your mouth. It coats your palate. You're getting hit on all corners of your tongue with the smoke and the flavor, and it's like bang right away. Here I am, welcome to the party. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And and then we also have a 6 1/4 by 54, which we have in Bosphorus, but that is more of a Churchill type size. This one is a torpedo size. And then we added a 6x60, instead of the 4x50. The 4x50, more like a Rothschild, but the whole idea there is you want to have a 20, 30-minute smoke, but you don't want to compromise the quality.
Yeah.
I think people really identify with that.
I love that 450, the Bosphorus. That was my favorite, to be honest with you.
It's great.
P50.
I mean, the guys at Cigar Aficionado love it too.
Yeah.
So the thing of it is, though, is that our salesman, he emailed me, said, I visited a customer, one of my top customers, and he's saying, well, you don't have a Toro, you need to have a Toro, and instead of the torpedo, so mind you, you're talking about 6 1/4 by 54 versus 5 1/2 by 55. Not much ring gauge difference between a 54 and a 55.
Right.
And so I said, well, first of all, Ernesto is famous for his torpedoes and his 6x60s. I mean, when he did La Gloria Cubana, I mean, those were two of his most famous sizes. And he was getting all these, he did the Puros Indios free blend, and he got like a 94 rating on his torpedo. So, you know what I mean? Like, operate in somebody's, sweet spot, field of strength.
He loves the big ring gauges.
Yeah, but I also said 5 1/2 by 55, in essence, is a Toro. It's just a thicker ring gauge Toro.
Yeah.
So,
Every retailer wants to be an armchair quarterback, though. You know what I mean? They always tell you, like, oh, this will... I remember there was, when we first did the Angel's Anvil in 2014, they had this poll at TAA of what's the worst selling and the best selling Batolas. And they said the worst selling Batola was a Churchill. And I purposely did the first TAA exclusive as a Churchill. And we actually oversold it. We sold it out. So I'm like, yeah, so much for your theory. But you know what I mean? It's like everybody's going to tell you, don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. Well, you go ahead and do it. You start a company and you freaking do your sizes that you want. You know what I mean? It's like you should just do what feels good, man. I think, listen, nobody does big ring gauges better than Ernie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's funny, man, because every time I see him with a cigar, if we go down to the factory, he's always got like some monster 60 ring gauge thing going or a 70 ring gauge at 7 o'clock in the morning. Right. That's his thing. He loves that. And it's funny because now I'm working on this. This is not to get too far ahead, but working on a PCA release. It'll be our first regular production with Ernie in almost 4 years, over 3 years. And he's got me kind of leaning more into the larger ring gauges. He goes, I know you want those 46s and 48s, man. Throw that shit out. Forget about it. So he's got me leaning into like these 54s, 56s, and they do smoke really, really well.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to try those larger formats in Aramis. What was the size that we had when we were sampling at TAA? Because that's when I smoked.
Yeah, 5 by 52.
Yeah, that was a nice size, and it smoked really, really well.
Yeah, the other thing I appreciate about him is that he really kind of is, normally in the years past when you want samples from somebody, they send you like plenty of samples. He doesn't send you plenty of samples.
It depends.
He wants them to be like really well aged, which I appreciate. So he wants them to be well aged so that they have a lot of the moisture has evaporated, and you know what I mean? It's going to perform as if it's going to perform when it's on a retailer's shelves and ultimately the consumer gets them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that detail. So as a net result, the cigars were well aged, really well aged. I mean, they burned awesome.
They started that production a while ago.
Yeah.
Really. So they were in good shape when we got
literally
them.
The materials weren't ready.
Exactly.
And then of course you get out there in the field, which I've been out in the field a lot. And then you're like, oh gosh, I should have, we should have done this or done that or not, You're always kind of like tweaking, checking, moving like that's my Nestor Plasencia. Looking, checking, organization. I saw him too. That was a fun kind of.
Yeah, they're doing some great cigars, man.
Oh yeah, he is.
They hosted, I think, one of the luncheons or something. I remember, and I was like, oh, free! I felt like a kid in a candy store again. I'm like, oh, yeah. I went and I was getting like Padrones and I was getting Plasencias and.
Nestor made the very first CAO.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. That was like 90s.
So I mean, like that was 94.
That was the CAO Black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Actually, I should do that. We should do an episode in.
Do you know a funny story about that cigar? I was still a consumer, and I was still like buying cigars and making notes in a little 3x5 note card thing. And I remember, I still have the book, and it was a CAO Black. And I remember, I remember taping it in the thing and writing my notes. And it was like one of the lowest rated cigars. Like I was just like, this thing is like unsmokable. I thought it was terrible. I really did. And I had no idea that I would end up working for CAO at that time. But that was,
That was when I was living in LA, and I would go and visit all these stores. And at that time, LA was like the hot market because you had all these celebrity smoking cigars and stuff like this. And they had no tax. And even you would go onto the sets of these like movies, and people would be like hawking Cuban cigars and all this stuff. But I remember like they were supposed to be chestnut brown, and one box would be chestnut brown, and one box would be
this
green,
one wasn't.
and the same one, and I didn't think it was very good either, to be honest with you. But I mean, like that was when like you had to go through like the hard times in order to understand. By contrast,
to be fair, it was also like the boom. So like people were just.
It's true.
If you could make a cigar, just throw it on the shelf. Throw it on the shelf. Throw it on the shelf. It was like it would sell regardless. And then there was like a weeding out process where the quality became more important, and then you started getting better product. And then like CAO Gold was so much better. The gold was just buttery and rich and just good cigar to smoke.
But I remember we got a shipment of those in that like we went through a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
But like we got in a shipment of CAO Gold, and I remember it looked like freckles were on them. And I was like, what the hell is this? And it was because they were sun grown. They had a Ecuador. They were Connecticut, Ecuador. And I guess it had rained, and the sun came out,
spotty.
And then it dried. And so the cigar looked like it had measles. So people were like wanting to send back boxes. It looked like there were measles on the cigar. God. And it was like, my dad was like, what in God's name is happening? The cigars, they have what do you call, turkey pox. I'm like, chicken pox, Dad. Whatever. They are reject.
There was
they tasted fine.
Some funky sizes in the black line. Remember the triangulare?
Oh, yeah.
It looked like a trumpet.
Yeah.
I remember those.
I don't know why we did a triangular.
I don't know why either.
It was like kind of a...
That was a really weird cigar.
It was a weird cigar. It was like not...
Didn't
not
really
that
take
sexy.
off.
It was kind of like a trumpet. Weird. Probably still have those. So I was going to say, we should do one of these things in Jono's humidor. You've been in Jono's humidor. That would be fun.
Back in the day.
Yeah. We can go there and like, you've been in there, Cole. We can go do one
That'd be cool. That'd be fun.
Because over there he has like these old vintage cigars, so we can like pull them out and we can talk about them.
There's
like he has some CAO Laniversaire Maduro in there. God. A sizes.
I remember the A size.
That was good.
That was an amazing cigar.
Really good. That got a high rating for us. Do you remember?
That was like 9 1/4 inches by either 47 or 48. I
think it was 48.
And it was, that cigar was unbelievably good.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Actually what we should do is we should smoke them and see how they hold up.
I liked the number 4 little Corona.
Those were really good.
Those were good too. That was out of a Costa Rica factory, then. I don't know if they're still around. Victor Calvo, remember him? Victor Calvo, Don Douglas Perringer, that whole group. But anyway, bring it back to 2023. You know what I was thinking would be cool is to do what you should think about is like a sampler of Bosphorus and Aramis. I think that it's like prime for a sampler.
Yeah, what sizes should we do in that?
Because just,
Somebody suggested doing the ones that got like 93 ratings, which would be 5.5 by 55 and 5 by 52.
And then we'll hold on and see what Aramis gets rating-wise. But, ratings notwithstanding, I just think that it'd be a nice little... Because there's so much differentiation in the shape and the color. And the flavor is completely different. It'd be a nice little package. It'd be a fun sampler. Miguel was just saying like, "Oh, we need to do samplers. We need to do samples." I'm like, "Shit, talk to Tim because he's prime for a sample."
Yeah, I'll be with him later this week, so
he's probably the 6x60 influence.
He loves 6x60.
I know.
6x60 is pretty good.
I always said when we started Crown Heads, I would never do a 6x60.
Never say never.
So. We hired Miguel.
I learned that.
we hired Miguel in 2017, and he kept hounding me for a 6x60, a 6x. I was just like, no, dude, I'm not going to do it. I've already said I'm not going to do it. And then he said, I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do it as an LE in a brand that you will pick, and if it takes off, kudos. We'll add it to the regular production. If it doesn't, then it was a failed experiment. We tried it.
Yeah, but he picked.
He picked
the
Luminosa.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
Well,
the problem is the 6x60. You need to do it in in my opinion, You need to be doing it in a fuller flavored line, not fuller bodied. Not
So
fuller
we did
flavored.
it as an LE, Luminosa Gigante. And I remember we had, right in this area, in fact, we had crates of just stacks of pallets of Luminosa Gigante boxes for months. And I would take a picture and text it to him, just to bust his balls.
Yeah.
I'm like, I told you, dude. I don't think that's our customer.
Yeah, but we
our
never
customer
did. We
is
never
just
did
not.
CAO Gold in 6x60.
No,
I mean, the only
6x60s
thing
weren't that big of a deal
But
back in the late 90s.
6x60 in Brasilia, we sold a lot of those in 6x60.
What was that called? Was that
That
the
was the
Amazon?
Amazon.
That was the Amazon.
We sold a lot of those.
That was right
So it kinda
when
depends.
like the big ring gauge thing came into vogue, like Serie R for La Gloria Cubana,
Fuller bodied cigar.
fuller bodied, bigger ring gauges, and then everybody started going. I mean, now I think Asylum does like an 80 ring gauge or a 70 ring gauge, and they kind of lead the pack with that genre. It's amazing. I just think it's a different customer than what we've developed over the years.
It also depends, like I think regionally. Like when I've been to Texas, there are a lot of big ring gauge cigars in Texas, more than average. But then when I go to other markets, I don't see bigger ring gauges as predominantly as in Texas.
Yeah.
So I think it depends regionally on where you go and what are people like gravitating towards.
I also think that the guy that smokes a big ring gauge cigar is some of them are looking bang for the buck. Like I can get this cigar that's huge for $7, or I can get this little Corona for $8. Well, I'm going to go with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just, it's a different mentality, I think, and nothing wrong with it. I just don't, it's hard for me to like get behind something that I wouldn't personally smoke, and I haven't smoked a 6x60 probably since Brasilia back in the day, to be honest with you. So it's just not my thing. And I remember texting Pete Johnson, and I'm like, dude, because I know he's kind of in the same, mindset as far as anti 6x60. He said, no, I do a 6x60. It's actually one of our best selling cigars. I'm like, what? Yeah, it's Kohanu. And he's like, we sell a ton of them. He goes, I don't smoke them, but we sell a ton of them. So you never know. I mean, there's a ask for every seed, I guess, that kind of a thing.
I don't know. I mean, I've always wanted to like Lanceros, and I mean, I just don't.
get it either.
Don't like them.
I don't.
And I want to like them, but I mean, I just don't like them as well.
I think I said this on another podcast earlier, but it's the most popular size that doesn't sell. As an LE, you can do it, and it may have some, with that niche, have some success. But as a regular production cigar, Lanceros just don't do it. It requires a lot of babysitting when you smoke that cigar. You're constantly touching it up. You're constantly lighting it. You have to consistently stay with it and smoke it, otherwise it'll go out. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me,
Yeah, in general, I like cigars that are. I've found the older that I get, I like them when they're 50 ring gauge and higher, for me.
Yeah. I'm like in that 46, 48 kind of thing. I've started to graduate towards 50, 52, but now this 56 that I'm working on with Ernie, it's like fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I wouldn't have been a cigar that I would have really selected, but with this particular project, I opened it up to Ernie. Okay, we got the blend. I love the blend. We finally got that right. What ring gauge range do you suggest for this blend? And that's when he was like, go larger, he goes, I know you like those 46s and 48s, and that's cute and everything, but let's try to keep it bigger. So we just went 50, 52, 54, 56. So, But it's interesting what the ratio can do, the wrapper binder filler ratio, what it can do for a cigar and the flavor profile.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the key, isn't it? I mean, the other thing I noticed that's interesting is that I find myself talking. I mean, consumers have become a lot more educated on cigars, which
no doubt.
I think is awesome, right?
No doubt.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I've done events where people are like, they even know what Omotepe is, which is a volcanic island in Nicaragua. So people know it. I mean, they're more educated than they are now than they were like 13 years ago, for sure. And of course, that's like
well, it's the advent of the internet
and
social
all the
media
that's out there.
100%. Yeah.
But the other thing I find interesting is that the, when you have, the seed and the stalk, and then the pH from the soil going into the stalk, into the leaves, and then you ferment them. Well, when you get into the fermentation, picking, the hanging in the barns, the chlorophyll draining, and then, fermenting them so that they're. My whole thing is that I don't really kind of. I don't like cigars that have so much nicotine in the leaves that it causes you to kind of sweat and to get a little bit
nauseous,
sick.
Yeah.
I'm more of a fan of fermenting the tobaccos so that the leaves are optimum, so that they burn well, and you're obtaining the maximum flavor potential out of every single leaf and then compiling them into a blend. But there are some manufacturers that will maybe not ferment them all the way so that they possess more of that kind of
intentionally,
nicotine.
but intentionally,
yeah. And I don't relate to that.
There's a consumer market for that, though. I mean, there's some guys that want that strong. Oh God, I'm sweating kind of a.
I mean, why would you want that? I don't understand.
I don't know. I think it's a difference.
Get sick?
It's a difference between sipping a nice glass of wine or having a craft cocktail as opposed to doing a shot. That's the way I look at it. Like, if you just want to get fucked up, do a shot, right? But if you want to enjoy the flavor and the essence of the beverage that you're drinking, you wouldn't do a shot. So that's kind of how I look at it. And
then you sip it, or you add maybe a drop of water or something like that.
I've always thought that cigars should be something you enjoy, not a challenge to smoke. Right?
Yeah, no. If I wanted nicotine, I would smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, no.
Because that's the whole point, is nicotine delivery.
Yeah.
I don't feel like cigars. The point is nicotine delivery. With cigars, the point is,
Have you ever had a cigar where you're like, oh God, I feel like I'm going to toss?
Yeah.
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 Do you remember that?
I can't stand it. Yeah, I mean,
I've had one that did that to me. I'll never forget it. And
what was it?
It was 1990, late 90s. I can't remember exactly when. It's forever ago. But it was an Opus X Power Ranger. It was this little tiny. They also called it like Opus X to the third or something, I think. And it was. I remember. Oh God, that thing. I smoked it in the morning. We were still in Osceola, and I smoked it in the morning. And I was just like, I think I'm gonna be sick. I didn't get sick, but it gave me that nauseous, like, oh my God, this thing was like friggin'. But that was the only cigar that ever did that to me.
I think I did it with like, funny enough, like sometimes some Cuban cigars. But then I was talking to someone who's a cigar maker, and they're like, well, actually, when we're on our trip, Cole, who's shooting this, Cole
you
was
have,
like,
you have a nauseous story.
No, but I'm going to tell you, it's a good example. So Cole had been smoking cigars all day.
Yeah.
And then we did this experimentation where I had asked Ernie, can you make like a puro, like almost like it looked like a freaking cheroot, like 100% of all the tobaccos that you have.
Of Esteli Ligero.
So that we could use it. And Cole, to his credit, was fine the whole time. Except we taught him how to retrohale too, and he did that beautifully. Except when we did the Hamastron, it looked like he was about to. that was stronger than he expected.
But in fairness, you hadn't been a cigar smoker to that extent, and then you'd say just threw you into the deep end, essentially.
Yeah, but he had been smoking all day, literally.
Yeah.
Right, and then at the end of the day, we're all sitting there outside, and smoking cigars and drinking rum, and. Somebody gave him like a Cuban Quintero, which that is a sandwich short fill cigar.
Yeah.
And he smoked that, and that got him a bit sick. He almost like threw up. He didn't, to his credit. He's still
the rum could have had a hand in it too. I mean, let's be
but I mean
right?
but they were saying that like hypothetically it was because of the fact that these are like short fill Cuban cigars, and maybe they hadn't been fermented 100%. Now,
Shocker.
I don't know. I can't really kind of comment whether it was or not, and I didn't smoke one. But that explanation made sense to me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, why would he get so sick from smoking that cigar that is a short filler?
It could be a compilation of all the other cigars he'd been smoking, what he did or did not eat that day. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. Like, I remember that Opus X I was referring to, it was like the first thing in the morning, I was having it with a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I probably had barely even eaten breakfast. So, in hindsight, that would have been like a later cigar for me. But, I remember back in the day, I used to think, oh, Cuban cigars must be really strong, But once you get into that Cuban portfolio of cigars, like when it's a good Cuban and when they're on, it's not strong. It's a pleasure to smoke. There's like some florality to it. There's a little bit of leather. There's like tea notes. It's a beautiful experience to smoke a really good Cuban cigar.
Now, there is a new kind of behind-the-scenes thing that we've been working on with Ernesto, which is, with the Pie Synesthesia limited edition. The first one was like, what does yellow taste like? Because that's based on the number pi that my late father would paint, and he would make certain numbers relate to a color. So 3.14, 15. So 3 yellow, 1 red. So we did yellow last year as a limited edition, so we want to do red this year. So the challenge is, what does red taste like? So we've been working on that. And most people, and I've been asking consumers when I've been going and doing events, because they'll have at some of these events still some of the pie yellow if the store bought it. So I'll explain the concept and say the next one is red. What do you think of when you think of red? And, I would say 80% say red, I think of something that's hot.
Yep.
I mean, I think of that too, because of like hot sauce and, you know what I mean? Things associated with red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feels like more fire.
It's going to be the antithesis of what the yellow was. Yeah, of course.
So Ernesto had these tobaccos that, like, one of them he lit up and he's like, this is a really old tobacco, aged tobacco. It might have been Esteli Ligero, Esteli Viso, something like this. And he lit it up and it smelled like dry aged meats, steak. So the first samples he sent, I think, had more of that in it, but it didn't taste strong. It tasted more maybe cinnamony with that kind of aroma. The meat, the dry aged meat aroma.
Right.
So I told Ernesto, I said, these are too mild, too sweet. So the next round, I went down there to his offices in Miami, and we smoked them down there. And the one that I smoked snuck up on me. It started off like really like bang, which I like that. I gave you one to smoke.
Yeah, I did.
But then that thing sneaks up on you. Next thing you know, you're like, okay, I gotta drink a Coke or something with this, because this is stronger than I thought.
Yeah.
So,
but in a good way.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just like, you have to have your constitution ready for something like that.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with cigars being strong as long as there's balance to them. Like if it's full bodied and it's strong, that's okay, as long as it's like not just this in your face pepper bomb. If there's other things going on and it's just rich and big, it's like almost like a big dessert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that. I like that experience in the cigar. It's the cigars I have a problem with is when it's just like it's all like one note, pepper, nicotine. Oh,
right. Yeah, I have a problem with that too.
No. That pie red actually that I smoked was really, really freaking good.
Yeah, so I told him, I said that blend we all liked. So we'll be looking at releasing that at the trade show this year.
Ernie has really come into his own, I think. I mean, God, he's been doing it for freaking, how many years? 40 years or something like that, probably, I guess, all told. But I think in the last 5 or 6 years, he's really just, I don't know, he's gone into, to me, he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore. Carlito, Padron, Ernie, he's, I mean, to have 2 cigars of the year and a runner-up is insane.
And also a cigar that gets like a 98 rating. I mean, who gets a 98 rating on a non-Cuban cigar?
Yeah, insane.
Unheard of.
Insane. And it carries over to the other brands it makes, like, for instance, Bosphorus. I mean, that vertical was out of this world. I mean, I can't remember seeing a vertical that was 93, 93, 92,
We never got one like that when we had CAO.
No. I haven't seen anybody really get one that strong.
Really?
No. I mean, maybe Foundation, Olmec, I don't know. Well, I know they got a 93 from the get-go, but I don't know if it was 2 93s or whatever, but one would be like, wow, but 2? So, I mean, he's just doing some great stuff. I've really gotten into his Encore line, the one that he first got the Cigar of the Year for, and that to me is just an amazing.
Well, I think his Pledge cigar is tremendous.
Yeah, that's more bold, rich, the kind of that dessert cigar we kind of talked about. Yeah. But the Encore is a little bit more nuanced. As an everyday smoke, that Encore is freaking amazing, man.
We are curious as to, like, if you have any questions for us to address and talk about, to let us know about that.
Drop a comment below. Leave questions. because ultimately we're going to run out of things to talk about. So we need some material to address.
Yeah, and also if there are any like specific guests that you want us to have on too, like or categories.
Yeah, we need to get somebody in here in the cigar business. Max was great last time.
Yeah,
Max was really good.
Yeah, and he's a legit cigar smoker, so we try to get legit cigar smokers here, but we don't want to be all about Nashville, because what if nobody cares about Nashville?
I think everybody cares about Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's an exciting city right now.
Especially if you listen to Max. Max will tell you that like Nashville's like, surpassed New York, LA, Chicago, and but
there was a I'm in downtown Rotary here in Nashville, and who knew it's like the third largest in the world now.
Wow.
So they had a panel yesterday that was about music industry in Nashville. So they had the CEO of Warner Records there. And they had Joe Galante on, who is kind of like a Nashville old school legend, from Queens, New York, who had been in Nashville for like probably 30, 40 years, I would guess, at least. And they were talking about the differences between, like, say, a Nashville music scene versus like a New York, or like an LA. And Joe Galante said that at one point he was in Nashville, he went back to New York. And he called somebody up, and he's like, "Hey, a competitor, hey, can we have lunch together? I want to just get together and catch up with you and pick your brain." And the other guy's like, "Fucking why? Like, I want to crush you, man. What the fuck I want to have lunch with you for?" He's like, "Well, wait a minute. It's just
there's a different mentality."
He's talking about like the sense of community.
Yeah.
That is over here is like also what makes the city kind of special.
And so many, when I first moved here, it was like just really like kind of country Americana. That was kind of it. But now like so many people are moving or have moved to Nashville. I mean, like about a week ago, my brother-in-law told me he pulled up to a stoplight and he looked over and it was this exotic car. And he's like, it's Vince Neil. Like Vince Neil lives, I guess, somewhere in like Leaper's Fork or something. He saw Vince Neil, and I think Robert Plant's moved here. I think Steven Tyler might have a place here. So there's a whole influx of like old school rock coming into Nashville, and it's an interesting time.
But I do think it's like that sense of camaraderie and community
that has survived the growth spurt for sure.
But that's one thing we have in the cigar industry that I like, is that there's a sense of camaraderie and friendship. I mean, even amongst competitors, you know what I mean? I don't think we ever look and say we want to crush so and so. It's just like we kind of coexist.
Yeah, and I agree. It's almost more like a big fraternity, Yeah. And you still root for the guys that are good guys that have been in it for a while, and we're all kind of friends behind the scenes. But it's a fun biz. So should we wrap it?
I think so.
I think that's good for episode 5. So drop comments below, give us questions, let us know what you want to talk about, and we'll see you on the next one from
wherever.
Yeah. All right.
We'll change it up.
Oz heads out. See you guys.
See ya.